Formula 1 Austrian Grand Prix.
Formula 1 on ITV, sponsored by Toyota.
For me, Styria is one of the most beautiful areas in the entire world. And let me tell you, I know what I'm talking about. Because I was born in Styria and I grew up there. I just love this area.
Local boy made good Arnie Schwarzenegger loves the A1 ring. But will we be back next year? Michael Schumacher returning to the scene of his most controversial victory. Winning fair and square is his priority.
Schumacher goes to the line. Is it pole? Yes, it is! And the wind almost takes his arm off, and you can see how much that means to him.
Hello there, good afternoon to you from the ITV studio. Nice of Arnie, wasn't it, to open up our pre-race show? But Tony, if the Austrian Grand Prix does disappear next season, I want to be there when the Terminator knocks on Bernie Eccleston's door.
Should move from a C movie to a B movie after that, shouldn't it? But keep ringing the cowbells and hitting the old lederhosen and saying 9, because the Austrian officials are telling us it may not be the last Austrian Grand Prix. We could be back.
OK, if you went with us for our qualifying shows, I must tell you about an exciting new feature that we've introduced this weekend. It's called Meet the Teams, and we're aiming to get inside all 10 teams in the paddock to find out just what makes them tick. We're starting with BMW Williams, and Tony, really contrasting fortunes for Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya in qualifying too.
Big pressure race for Williams BMW. There was a crisis meeting on the Wednesday before, and Ralf had messed up a little bit on the Friday. He paid the penalty for spinning off in the first qualifying. It meant he had to go first in final qualifying. Very low grip. He was like a track sweeper, said Mario Tyson, the technical director of BMW. Held that position for a while, but he was really disadvantaged. Whereas Juan Pablo Montoya ended up third on the grid with a conservative approach, he said, because he'd watched all the other drivers, lots of them anyway, running wide in the warm-up, and he went very conservatively through the first corner. Very pleased with that, and taking a different engineering approach to the car. Very different setup, he said.
Just got a shot of Connie Montoya. We'll be talking to her before the race. Fernando Alonso billed as faster than the speed of light, but too fast for his own liking here.
Well, you know, he's benefited from the one-shot qualifying system, and now he's a victim of it because he makes a mistake just here, sliding and going off at Lauda where hardly anyone else has run off before. And he said, look, you know, you've got to take the good times with the bad times. And incidentally, everyone chasing the services of this young man, and Ferrari have been sniffing around, Briatore saying, no, hands off his mind. There you go, again. That's dropped him all the way back to 19th on the grid. So perhaps we're in for a treat of this young man coming through the field.
Another young man, Kimi Raikkonen, championship leader, absolutely dismal in Spain, but back on the money here.
There's a great run from Kimi, and this is really great timing. He would just hang on to this tenuous lead in the World Championship. He's right at the front, and he joked, saying, look, there's no one in front of me, so perhaps I won't hit anybody this time. But he described it as almost a perfect lap, so good for him.
Let's take a look at the Ferrari, shall we tell you. Rubens Barrichello outdrove Michael Schumacher here last year, but Michael, the main man again.
Rubens was fastest through the speed trap. He'd be fastest in the session before the final qualifying, but he went on a totally different route. On his setup, we think maybe on the tyres, maybe on the fuel as well, because he's ended up in 5th position. In contrast, Michael Schumacher, look at this, full-blooded slide, rally style, into turn 1. He collected it all up and still managed to hit the apex somehow. Now, the rest of the lap was perfect. He just concentrated on getting it together, and he clawed back that time that he'd lost in the first corner. Amazingly, gets pole, and look at this, punch in the air. It shows how much he enjoyed that one.
Yeah, he doesn't like statistics, does he, Michael Schumacher? But we can tell him that the pole sitter has only won twice since we've been coming here in 1997. But go on, Tony, just chat us through the grid.
Well, it's 4th pole position for Michael Schumacher this year, and alongside him Raikkonen, and that equals his best ever at Spa last year. Montoya 3rd with that conservative approach, and Nick Heidfeld his best ever in the spare car. Barrichello 5th, Trulli in the Renault 6th, Button a wild ride to 7th place, and alongside him Pitsonia repaying the confidence in him. Fisichella aiming for the top 10, there he is 9th, Ralf Schumacher down in 10th, Panis 11th, he said the car not suited to the track, and Villeneuve was just too aggressive in that first corner. Cristiano de Mata in 13th place, Coulthard, 2 mistakes cost him dear, his worst start since 98 here in Austria. 15th Frentzen, 2 conservative, Thurman hindered by understeer. Webber, the dirty track and a bit of overdriving affected him. Wilson in the spare car. Alonso all the way back there, and Verstappen no time. He had gearbox problems.
Michael, what an incredible recovery that was. How did you manage to do it?
Keep on pushing and having a good car, having a good balance. Well, but being so tight, obviously it's a little bit of luck to just get it right and not to have another little wobble sort of last corner as yesterday. And I just made sure that it didn't happen.
It was a fantastic lap. What made the difference? You, the car?
No, it was the first time this year that I got the lap without any mistakes, and it makes a big difference. And also we found quite a good setup today for the car from yesterday, and everything just came together.
Must be pretty good being up there with the Ferrari and the McLaren.
Yeah, it shows we got the potential to be there, and it's just learning to get the most out of the car, and we're doing that.
It's unrealistic to say that we are quicker than the Ferraris, that we are quicker than Rubens, for example. But still, I think we are in a strong position to fight for the points.
Oh, the car was okay, but all weekend, you know, we are not very competitive here probably. But anyway, the race tomorrow is very long. I hope to score more points tomorrow.
David, how would you mark that one out of 10?
Well, -1, I think. That wasn't a very good lap. Obviously, it ran off at the last corner. It wasn't really going anywhere anyway, but obviously it's not reason to run off. But I haven't lost the back end there all weekend. So just, you know, one of the difficulties we're having with the car, it just throws little surprises at you.
What did you make of David's lap? Martin said he'll be angry with himself with that.
Well, I think we'll be angry. There's 3 mistakes, not 1, and it's a bit unacceptable. But you know, we're a team. We have to support each other when we do things wrong and make mistakes, and that's the way we are. And no one's going to. He'll be tough enough on himself. We don't need to be any tougher.
You know, Tony, that's really strong stuff from Ron Dennis. 3 mistakes, unacceptable. Is he being a bit harsh on David Coulthard?
I think David would say it's unacceptable to himself. He'd be kicking himself over that, like in San Marino when he made 1 mistake and lost 7/10 of a second. You can see it here. But in his defence, the car has been nervous all weekend. He had lots of problems. He hasn't had the confidence to push it as hard as he would have liked. You can see through the last corner there when he's running wide. What he's really got to hope, and he knows about winning here, he knows how to get results, all those second places plus a win. He's got to hope that that very strong strategy that McLaren have got, that Ron Dennis has talked about, will help him come through from 14th. Now, Alan Jones won from 14th here in 1977, and he himself went from 14th to 2nd in 1998.
That new McLaren can't come quickly enough, can it?
No, he wants it really, really fast.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Well, let's continue meeting the Williams team, who tested at the impressive Paul Ricard circuit in the south of France before coming here to Austria. Well, the animosity between the drivers, that's an open secret, but Juan Pablo Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, they were quite happy to sit side by side and tell Ted Kravitz about the price of Formula One fame.
Does being famous affect where you choose to live? Juan, you live between Miami and Monaco, and Ralph, you live in Salzburg in Austria.
It was pretty difficult in the beginning, you know, when I was going there, but now it's perfect, and it is a kind of escape, but in a normal environment. And I lived in Monaco as well for 6 years. It was a nice time, but if you have married life and a kid, then it's not really the place to be, and that's why I decided to go there. And it's just great to be there. People leave me alone, mainly. That's great.
You like that, not being noticed?
Very much, yeah. I mean, I would love to go to the paddock and no one comes to me and wants an interview, a picture or an autograph. I would love that. It's something I won't miss about the sport. I mean, I like my fans and I like my sport, but I won't miss you guys one day. Let's rest assured.
We'll miss you. What about you, Juan? You don't seem to mind that all so much.
Actually, in Monaco, for example, you know, you get a very, you know, for myself, I seem to have a really quiet life. I love it. You know, you go to restaurants and people know who you are, but they respect you a lot. And you get great service everywhere you go. They treat you really well. It's very quiet, relaxing. You know, you can go cycle. You know, I love it. I like it a lot. You know, through all the season we're here, and you know, when we get like the 2-week break, then we go to Miami and play there. I got some toys and windsurfing and stuff like that. But I don't mind. You know, and Connie loves Monaco as well, so it's good.
And you're both married. Ralph, you have a son, David. Your wives do tend to come to the races. Is it important to have that kind of balance in life?
I think it's good to have somebody like that. It's a great support. And I think you need to have good people around you that support you and help you. And that really seems to help.
For me, it's pretty difficult to convince Cora to come anyway, because she feels a bit bored on race meetings. And she doesn't like all the attention usually, so for her, that's why she doesn't come to all the races, and usually comes to 8-9 races a year, not more. And that's because I want her with me. Otherwise, she would love to stay with David rather than coming to a race meeting.
Because of what you do, you get a lot of benefits, a lot of nice things to play with. What's the downside of being a top-line F1 driver?
You know, it's like any job. You know, probably for you to be here on a Sunday, it's not ideal. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind so much, but you have to do it. I think probably, you know, that's the hardest bit of all, is learning to live with the PR work. You know, with the time you get used to it and just get on with it and do it. And something I learned over the years is more than you enjoy it, easier than it is, yeah? And I think something that, you know, I try to apply to everything.
For me, it was pretty difficult. I mean, especially when I was by myself in Monaco, no one really knew anything about my private life. But once you start having a family, it's a bit more difficult to hide it. And, you know, I mean, at the start of the season, there were pretty bad rumors in the press. These are the things I pretty much hate about it and miss doing whatever you like to do and maybe behave like a 27 or 28-year-old without taking too much care about what people might think or write about you. That's the downside of it.
Juan, we know that you've got toys, motorbikes, things like that. What do you both like to do to relax?
For me, playing. Oh, you know, I got the bikes. I do a lot of like enduro riding, trail riding. I do windsurfing, a lot of it. Last hobby is, you know, flying little airplanes, you know, air control planes. That's pretty good fun.
Because Ralph, you fly your own plane, don't you? But I guess
started with
I fly the little one, he flies the big one.
I started with remote control planes as well, yeah. No, that's a long time ago. Yeah, and then I found it more enjoyable to fly my own plane, yeah. But that was more started, and it's quite enjoyable actually. And fly home after races as well, so that's no problem. I like doing it.
And what about any kind of spare time that you get? Do you just relax on your boat, or?
Well, I love to go hunting. That's what I do as well at home. You know, obviously do my sports. That's about it. I have a boat, that's right, which I've been trying to sell for 6 months now, because I don't have the time to, you know, basically to spend any time on it. That's a problem. So, and I must admit, since I live in Austria, I don't enjoy it as much anymore. You know, when you live in Monaco, you have an apartment, you want to get out, but in Austria you have your nice big garden, so you don't care so much about anything else anymore.
You want to buy a boat? Ralph is open to offers. Still to come on our Williams weekend, we'll be talking to Mrs. Connie Montoya and to Sir Frank Williams. And during the Austrian Grand Prix itself, We're going to hear from Engineering Chief Sam Michael, live from the pit wall. Afterwards, we will talk direct and exclusively to one of the drivers. All sorts of stories that Williams aren't that happy with BMW, their engine suppliers. In fact, that BMW are more unhappy with what they've been getting out of Williams. Let's get that BMW perspective, shall we? And talk to Mario Tyson. He is the BMW Motorsport Director. There he is, and Ted's opposite him.
Yes, Jim, indeed. There has been a lot written, Mario, in the British press about the relationship between BMW and Williams. How would you describe that relationship as it stands at the moment?
Well, the team certainly is not at the top at the moment, and you know that Williams as well as BMW have the aim to be at the top, so there's some work to do. We do this jointly. We are analyzing all the areas in which we see a deficit. We are talking about how to improve, how to support Williams, and there certainly is a joint approach to become competitive again.
But the deficit does seem to be on the car side rather than the engine side.
This time it looks like this, but we had other situations as well. When, if you remember, 2000, when we came in as a newcomer, BMW, Williams supported us to get on track and to get on speed, and now it's the other way around. Nothing dramatic.
Thanks very much, Mario.
Well, nothing dramatic, they're saying there, but my feeling is that BMW's view is that we have the best, the most powerful engine. Why aren't they winning races? Why aren't we winning races if I was BMW?
Well, Gerhard Berger, who's the outgoing sporting director, he's the mischief maker on all this, and he now feels that he can say what he wants to say. He's saying that our engine is that good, it can make any driver into world champion. But that car is not up to BMW's expectations. That's what's going on at the moment. The whole Williams operation is under the BMW microscope. But at the same time, Williams are looking at them, and BMW are looking at processes, people, everything. So that's all going on right now, and their contract runs out at the end of 2004.
OK, Tony, thank you very much indeed. We're not sure if this is going to be the last Austrian Grand Prix or not, but the organisers have gathered together all the former winners, and that includes John Watson, winner here in 1976. Here he is with Louise.
John, you're a former winner of this Grand Prix, aren't you? What was it like racing in the old circuit?
Fantastic. It was a great racetrack. Shame the drivers today can't experience what we enjoyed back in the 70s up until the mid-80s. But I suppose, you know, cars are very quick these days. Concerns about safety for spectators and drivers. That dictated that the track had to change, and also the cost of maintaining a big track, well, it's so high. Sad, but true.
What's your best memory of racing here?
I think winning in 76, my first Grand Prix victory, a victory for Penske, came after a very difficult year the year before when they lost their #1 driver, Mark Donoghue. To come back in 76 with, you know, poignant memories and feeling a bit maybe uncomfortable with the place, but to go away with a Grand Prix victory. So for both parties, the team and myself, it was a fantastic day.
This modern A1 ring, just about the shortest and quickest lap on the calendar, and a very tricky run as well to the bottleneck that is the first two corners. The car's flat out for around 70% of the lap. It's very easy to make mistakes. Witness Alonso in qualifying. We're on board with championship leader Kimi Räikkönen and Martin Brundle.
Let's take a look at what must be one of Räikkönen's best ever laps, and certainly his finest Grand Prix qualifying lap. Nothing much to do yet, heading up to turn 1 at 180 miles an hour, braking deep into the heart of the hill, and then launching across the extra space on the exit. Drivers finding they have to attack that, if not they lose time, but it's a big risk. 195 miles an hour. Look where he brakes, look at the marker boards. 105 metres before the corner, still braking uphill. Now it's levelling off, and you're heading towards turn 3, building up then to 190 miles an hour, trying to take the straightest line possible, braking downhill this time, so extra caution, and the front of the car will tend to slide to the curb on the outside. Pick the throttle up and try to steer the back end of the car. You're heading into the middle of the circuit. You have to hesitate, you have to hold on this corner, and then down hard on the throttle again. 160 miles an hour, down to 130 for the Berger curve. It's a bit tight on the exit. Then you're released and over the crest of the hill to the tricky Rindt curve. 185 miles an hour, off camber. Tighter on the exit, and now the most difficult of all, the last corner. Take all the curb on the inside. Räikkönen on the throttle tremendously early, and over the start-finish line, front row of the grid.
Räikkönen saying that's the first time this year his qualifying lap has been close to perfection. Remembering last year, Tony, went out early with a spot of engine failure, I seem to remember, but he missed one of the biggest crashes of the season.
Yeah, you see, because this circuit is so short and sharp, you know, the lap is so short, there's a lot of excitement on this track, a lot of drama as well. And in this incident here, Nick Heidfeld, who's fourth on the grid today, lost it under braking there. The car slewed to the right. He suspected something was wrong with the brakes. He just missed Juan Pablo Montoya, but he went straight into Takuma Sato. It was a big crash, and because Sato is so small, he was able to move in the cockpit. As the Sauber pierced the side of the cockpit of Takuma Sato on the Jordan there, and just look at the speed he careered across there. How lucky was Montoya and how unlucky was Sato, but Sato was okay. And I note that Sato just tried the hands device for the first time at Paul Ricard testing with BAR last week. That would have helped him in that crash.
Yeah, that was a big story in itself, wasn't it, Tony? But of course, we remember Austria 2002 for that contrived Ferrari finish, and everybody watching the Ferraris very, very closely today.
Well, it brought the sport into disrepute, and it set the sport back quite a long way here because, you know, it was engineered, it was fixed at the end, and the radio message came over when Barrichello clearly had the beating of Michael Schumacher, let him through, and on it went. The crowd booed, the press booed, it was cynical. It got us going here in the studio, and James Allen was particularly upset about it, so was Martin Brundle. Even worse to come, Schumacher, clearly embarrassed by the whole thing and understanding the noise from the crowd there, pushes Rubens up onto the top step of the podium, for which they received a big fine from the FIA, and rightly so.
Could it happen again?
Not unless they're consummate actors, as I said, from RADA. I don't think so. But what does worry me is Jean Todt says that we will act in the best interests of Ferrari. Hopefully the FIA will be watching very carefully.
Let me just remind you of the drivers' standings as we head to the sixth race of F1 2003. 4 points the gap now between Kimi Räikkönen and Michael Schumacher, winner of the last two races. And Alonso, he's driven every lap in every race so far. Then Barrichello. Coulthard needs something really today. Ralf Schumacher scored in every race, and Giancarlo Fisichella won in Brazil. But just looking at Michael Schumacher, I just believe that this is the one circuit where the great man is vulnerable.
Right from the first race in '97, he was all over the place. He was through the gravel traps, he was rattling his nose cone off. He didn't finish there, he had a first lap accident in 2000, as you saw. And he won last year only because he was handed the victory. And then he had, you know, second place. He treats it like a go-kart track. He's normally very lively here, so watch him.
Yeah.
He could make a mistake.
I think Barrichello even pulled over to give him that second place as well. We'll be watching those Ferraris very closely indeed. Well, this weekend started pretty well for Jaguar. Mark Webber was third in qualifying one, the highest placed Michelin runner. But in the week when Mark there has agreed to stay with the team till the end of 2005, a likeable and very talented Aussie got it all wrong in qualifying too. That means he's starting 17th.
Up until this weekend, you could have bet your house on Mark Webber being one of the stars of qualifying. So it's ironic that his worst grid spot in a Jaguar comes just after he took control of his future and signed a new 2-year deal with the Milton Keynes-based squad. It's quite early in the season to be announcing driver contracts, so why the rush?
Doing all the hard work in 2003 and the start of 2004, I'm not really prepared to move ship, if you like, if someone else is going to come in and reap the rewards of all the hard work that collectively we're going to do. So for me, it was not a no-brainer, but a very, very easy decision to make.
Mark's managed by Renault boss Flavio Briatore. There were suggestions the Aussie would replace Jarno Trulli at Renault or hold out for an offer from another top team. Mark's been touted as the next big thing, but he doesn't believe the hype.
The press were talking about it, but the teams weren't talking about it. It's a big difference, and you know, I know where I am now for the future. Something that collectively we can control and work very hard at. And at the end of that term, I'm still okay. I'm not a young whippersnapper, but there's still a long, long time for me to do the business in Formula One.
I'm awfully glad that we talked to him when we did, because we'd like to build the team with somebody in a solid, safe position for a long time, because stability helps.
Try telling that to Antonio Pizzonia. Having threatened him with the sack at the last race in Spain, Jaguar have had a change of heart and have now confirmed him till the end of the season.
Well, basically, I think they were quite honest, which is good. They said, you know, they made a mistake, sorry, and let's carry on from here. And I was quite pleased with that, because I think the unnecessary pressure that was
body on me didn't help at all.
It does have a small influence and a little bit of a drain on the team, if you like, just in terms of what we all want to do well. We all want to get points and have 2 cars up there, and we know Antonio can do it. There's no question about that. It's just getting up there and doing it when it counts. And I'll be frustrated when he does, because that means, you know, I'll have to work really, really hard. But it's behind us now, and onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards, probably from the pit lane he's going to be starting, Tony. But it's good news for him. He's got his contract till the end of 2005. It also shows that Jaguar are going to be staying around F1 for a while.
Which is great, and we had breakfast with Tony Pennell this morning and discussing Jaguar's fortunes. They're operating on a very, very tight budget. They are being very, very businesslike, and they're turning it around. And Mark Webber is central to that, and he knows that. And he's a big fish in that pond there, and he's enjoying it. And he wants to reap the benefits later on.
And of course, we always like to hear from you, and it's actually your chance to have a chat with Mark Webber on the ITV F1 website this Wednesday lunchtime at 1 o'clock. And we continue our series of Asking the Team. It's Louise Goodman who will respond to your questions. itv.com/F1, the website, of course. And email us. We'd always appreciate your emails, studio@itv-f1.com, and we'll do our best to respond certainly after the Austrian Grand Prix. You can text us as well, 86188, the number, text F1 followed by your message, and all the details and a lot more on the ITV F1 website. And we do have an email just for you, Tony. It comes from Newcastle, from Paul Simmons, and he wants to know, what does the T stand for when you mention T-car?
Well, Paul, T-car is what they used to put onto the spare, or the training car as they called it, and in days gone by they used to have to put the T in front of the number on the car before you could take it out and run it, so people knew that you were in the spare car. We on ITV like to try and call it the spare car as much as possible to avoid confusion, but that's what it is, the spare Grand Prix car.
Thank you very much, Tony. The BAR cars have been going pretty well. High hopes for Jenson Button, qualifying comfortably inside the top 10. Let's have a word with BAR boss David Richards, and he's with Louise.
David, Jenson has done pretty well in qualifying. He's starting 7th on the grid, so he's already in the points. How difficult is it going to be, though, for him to stay there?
Well, unfortunately, the points don't accrue to you till the end of the race, Louise. But nonetheless, no, he's done a very good job all weekend. He was actually 5th fastest on the Friday in the qualifying Friday afternoon, and with fuel, he made a small mistake on the last corner. And but 7th, and I think he's got to be reasonably happy with that.
Not such a good day for Jacques yesterday. He's going to have his work cut out a bit more, isn't he?
He is. He's down in 12th. He made quite a big mistake on the first corner and then spent the rest of the lap trying to claw it back. And when you do that, you tend to make a lot more mistakes.
What kind of race are you expecting today? Do you think there'll be a bit of rough and tumble out there?
It's a very strange track. You look at the layout of the track and you look at the thing, it looks very simple and straightforward. It's very low grip. It's very slippery. We've seen an awful lot of mistakes in qualifying and free practice. I think you're probably going to see quite a few mistakes this afternoon as well. Hopefully not from our guys.
Thanks, David.
Half an hour to go to the start of the race. Ralf Schumacher, in fact, starting right in front of Jacques Villeneuve. This is virtually a home racer for Ralf. In fact, Austrian television calls him our Ralphie. Well, he lives a couple of hours' drive away in Salzburg. He's been staying at a hotel barely 2 miles from the circuit. And as part of our Williams weekend, Ted Kravitz hitched a ride with Ralf to the A1 ring this morning.
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 You well?
Yeah, so
race day?
Let's wait and see.
Yeah, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Leute, mach doch langsam, bitte.
Jetzt rein muss, hat gut.
Na, hoffentlich, schauen wir mal.
Danke. There's so many autographs, and so I mean, I guess you can never sign everything for everyone.
No, it's always a bit difficult. That's why you usually try to come around it and run away.
Yeah, it's quite good with this. Without this warm-up, can you have quite a late night on Saturday night, or do you still have to go to bed early?
Usually, because Saturday is so early again, that last night I was actually really tired and I was at bed at 10 o'clock already, so it doesn't change it. But you could stay out a bit longer and enjoy the evening a bit more. That's... I don't know what he was trying to do there.
Yeah.
Really, you know, on a race meeting, I'm not in the mood anyway to go out and thinking about partying or whatever, so I've never done that.
So do you always drive yourself in to the circuit?
Yep.
Always? Do you like being driven by other people?
No, usually I'm always driving. Last week, because I took David somewhere else and a friend of mine, so I told him to drive, and to be in a bag with David to play around. And I joined it quite, I must admit, you know. But usually, if I want to go somewhere and I'm under time pressure, I'd rather be driving myself and even to the circuit. I mean, some drivers don't like to drive. I mean, Irvine never drove a car, I think. Cloudy today.
Yeah,
Cold.
Yeah, they were talking about rain in the morning, but nothing in the afternoon. I don't know what you've heard.
Well, I've heard towards the end of the race there was a chance of rain, but I don't know.
So you feeling well otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a very good weekend for me this weekend. Started all a bit bad, but that's the way it is sometimes. So, especially if it happens on a Friday, you'll never get it back with these rules, really. Plus, I didn't have a good lap yesterday again. But, you know, being 10th is reasonable to have a good race.
So here we are,
Yeah.
at the circuit.
Ooh.
More autographs. That's Michael's hat.
Doesn't matter.
Danke! Bitte! Danke!
Bist du Gott? Das war die falsche Mütze, aber ausnahmsweise.
Do a lot of the Austrians sort of take you on as
bit.
their driver because
Yeah, a bit. I mean, there's no other Austrian driver, so I think, yeah, since I've moved over here. But then I've never had a really good race here. So it's always a shame.
Yeah, it's never been good for you, this circuit.
Oh, usually a bit unlucky and I've made mistakes. All that stuff. I go through there. Morgen. Morgen. Oh, mein Autoschlüssel sollte ich vielleicht auch noch mitnehmen. Das bin ich gar nicht gewohnt.
Well, you forgot the key.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to nick it.
No.
Well, thanks for driving us in.
You're welcome.
Extremely good driver. Only almost crashed once.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
One hand on the wheel, I guess that's okay if you're Ralf Schumacher, not to be recommended otherwise. Ralph fourth last year, 3 successive retirements. Pretty chilly this morning, it's moved up to 19 degrees. The drivers on the parade there, those Renaults will need a bit more power. Ralph Furman towering over Giancarlo Fisichella, and Coulthard and Raikkonen discussing tactics. Well, next we'll be hearing from Connie, and she has been Mrs. Juan Pablo Montoya for less than a year. She's been telling Louise about life with Colombia's #1 sporting hero.
Did you have any reservations about getting involved with a racing driver?
Well, I really didn't understand what I was gonna do. It was like, I was talking to him 2 days ago about this. Like, my life before Juan Pablo, I look at him like Juan Pablo Montoya, the race driver. And since I'm with him, I look at him like my boyfriend, my husband. So it's like 2 different worlds, 2 different persons. But at the beginning, I really didn't know what I was getting into.
And we're counting down to the start of the 25th Austrian Grand Prix at the A1 ring in the Styrian Mountains. Juan Pablo Montoya out on track in the parade lap. We've been meeting his Williams team in the first of a brand new feature. Now we're going to hear from the lady who always puts a smile on Juan Pablo's face. It's Mrs. Connie Montoya.
You got married to Juan Pablo last year, didn't you? But you'd been together for a bit before that. Tell me the story about how you first met.
Well, we first met in Colombia. Well, I saw him a couple of times, but nothing major. And then we went to a race. He was already Indy champion in 2000, the Homestead race. And there, I asked him for an autograph, and he asked me, "I've met you somewhere before." I'm like, no. He's like, yeah. And my ex-boyfriend, like to talk to him more, came up and said, "Yeah, you once asked for an autograph and everything." And there we started to chat a little. Took a picture, and then 2 weeks later he calls me, and there we kind of talked, but my boyfriend wasn't really happy about it. At that moment. So we stopped talking, and then like 2 months afterwards, I was in Miami and he just called, and he wasn't with a girlfriend, I wasn't with a boyfriend, and since then we've been together.
Did you have any reservations about getting involved with a racing driver?
Well, I really didn't understand what I was gonna do. It was like, I was talking to him 2 days ago about this. Like, my life before Juan Pablo, I look at him like Juan Pablo Montoya, the race driver. And since I'm with him, I look at him like my boyfriend, my husband. So it's like two different worlds, two different persons. But at the beginning, I really didn't know what I was getting into.
Do you think if you had known, you would have still got together with him?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's worth it.
Now your life is very much with him, isn't it? I mean, you come to all of the races with him. You're very supportive of his career.
Yeah, this year is my first year I could do all races because the last 2 years I was studying, finishing college, so I couldn't come to every race. This year I'm like just dedicated to him actually.
What's Juan Pablo like away from the track? Is he very different?
Yes, he's more calm because race weekends he does get like really hyper. But sometimes he just sits around and wants to do nothing. Watch TV, play PlayStation in the computer, do things like very calm. And other times he has to do something, so he goes motorbike racing, enduro, play tennis, squash. He has to do something.
He's always so lively at the track. I imagine it must be a bit like living with a playful puppy at home. I mean, he's just always
I
bouncing,
live with
isn't
a 9-year-old boy and everything. Everything he does and things and what he wants and everything is like a little boy. It's very fun.
Is he very demanding?
Yes. But I think that's bad. Not bad, but for him, he's very, very hard on himself. Very, very hard. So that's why it's good because he expects and always tries to give 200% of himself. But sometimes in Formula One, there's so much factors. The car, the tires, the engine, the other drivers, everything. So you can't control everything. So it gets a little bit frustrating, but it's okay.
What do you think is Juan Pablo's best quality as a husband?
Best quality. He really takes good care of me. He's always thinking about me, about if I'm okay, if I need something, if I want something. He's really there for me.
The inevitable question I have to ask you, I suppose, being married to a racing driver, do you worry about the dangerous side of the sport?
No, you know there's a danger. You know it's an extreme sport some way. But it's so secure. For example, 2 weeks ago when he had the Silverstone crash, I really didn't know about it. I was just in internet and Mark Janet came up to me and said, Juan Pablo had a crash. And I looked at him like, yeah? I thought he just went off or nothing special. Like, if somebody tells you he's okay. But I didn't know because you know, and it says you don't have the TVs or anything. And then he comes back and he's completely full of mud and everything. I'm like, where were you? And then I go to see the car and it was completely destroyed. So there you really get a sense. But you look at the car, you look at the crash, you look at the speed, and he walked away from it. So when it's your time, it's your time. On a car, in heart attack, anything. So.
How do you see your life evolving together? Because obviously Juan Pablo's not going to be racing for always.
I think I try to imagine it, but I really can't because it's weird. Like, I met him racing. I've been with him racing. So he says he wants to go to go-karts again. But I don't know, he has so much toys and so much things. He doesn't have time for anything. So I think he'll be everywhere, every time, doing everything.
Is there anything that you would particularly like to do in your life, though?
Yeah, I think that after he retires, it's a long, long way from now. But I think I'll start working in my stuff, helping Colombia, like now really, really into a job.
That'll be your time.
Yeah.
That other fella never had a chance once at Juan Pablo swoop, meeting the Austrian Chancellor there. He's on the second row. Williams hoping for their first win in 20 races. Juan Pablo, well, he was the happy one on the podium last year when Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello squirmed with embarrassment. Who is hot this afternoon? Let's hear from our commentators, Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Well, it was a stunning lap of Kimi Raikkonen's yesterday in qualifying to set up this showdown off the front row of the grid with Michael Schumacher. And Martin, I'm really interested in this time now, these races where Michael's got the new Ferrari, Kimi hasn't yet got the new McLaren. It's crucial that Michael takes advantage now, isn't it?
Yes, he needs 10 points today. Raikkonen, though, doing a great job of minimising the pain while he's waiting for that new McLaren. And he's got a great chance, I think, of scoring some good points today too. He must beat Michael into the first corner if he wants to win the Grand Prix, because I think Michelin will go through a 10-lap period of a lot of graining and a lot of understeer, and that's all the way through the Michelin runners.
There's a few fast cars out of position like Coulthard, Alonso. We saw some really wild driving, didn't we? Villeneuve too was really extraordinarily wild yesterday. What was that all about?
It's a bit strange. Some of the drivers, their teammates had put in a very strong performance and they went out there and just tried too hard, lost their head a little bit. You know, you can add Alonso to that too because he spun off the racetrack completely. So a big feature of today's Grand Prix is watching those out-of-position cars, the faster cars coming through from the back of the field.
Let's talk about the tactical battle to win it, though. I fancy that it'll be a bit like Spain 2 weeks ago, where the Michelin tyre really kept the Renault in it there, kept Alonso in the hunt with Michael. And it seems to be keeping its teams really close and negating that new Ferrari advantage. The Ferrari doesn't seem to be that big step ahead that we expected.
Again, it doesn't, and in the press conference yesterday, Michael Schumacher admitting that he really doesn't expect to easily win this Grand Prix today.
No, it's big, big pressure. It should be a thriller.
Thanks, James. During the race, we hope to hear from engineering guru Sam Michael. There he is on the left at the heart of the Williams team, live from the pit wall. We've never done that before, all part of getting under the skin of the BMW Williams team this weekend. What about race strategy? Could mean 1, 2, even 3 stops. 1 stop has been very much the norm around the A1 ring. Ferrari, you might remember, stopped twice last year. While Renault, lacking genuine speed, they could have something tricky up their sleeve. Here is Ted with test driver Alan McNish.
Yes, Jim, a line on Strachey in just a moment, but Renault have got a bit of a problem on their hands because Fernando Alonso has got a hydraulic leak. Is that right? He's in the spare, Alan.
Yes, they've found out there's a problem overnight in Parc Fermé, and so therefore they've had to go to the spare car. In reality, starting from 20th position on the grid, that doesn't affect him too much, but ultimately it's not his race car. He doesn't have the feeling for it.
OK, let's talk strategy just for a moment. We reckon Raikkonen is on a 2-stop. I think Ferrari might be on a 3-stop, but you're not so sure.
No, not so sure. I don't actually believe that he lost too much time on his qualifying lap when he locked up into turn 2. I think it was one of those freak situations where he was able to control it and lose maybe 0.5 of a second. I think Heidfeld's on a 3-stop and Barrichello 2-stop as well.
Jenson Button might be on a 3 as well, we think.
They look very, very good in the long runs. Michelin have always been strong this year, but I think Bridgestone have upped their game this weekend.
It's getting a lot hotter down here. Alan, what's that going to mean for the Michelins?
Well, that's definitely a benefit. There's no question the hotter it gets, the better it is for their tyre degradations and feeling. However, there's a few clouds coming in over the top of the mountains, and you know what it's like here. When it comes over the mountains, it can rain just like that.
I want to part you with 10 euros of your money. Let's have the top 3.
I would say a top 3 is going to be Trulli in 3rd position. 2nd is going to be Raikkonen.
Alonso, go on, play the company game.
No, it can't be. I'd say it's Raikkonen and Schumacher to win. But the top 3 are going to be very, very close.
OK, thanks very much, Alan.
Punt then from Alan McNish, putting his man 3rd on the podium. Ralf Schumacher, we drove with him to the circuit. Says he doesn't like this place very much, Tony. Doesn't like driving around here. A bit like his brother, perhaps.
Well, I mean, this circuit is critical to the strategy because, as I said, it is so short and sharp, and yet the pit lane is so long. They've got to take many things into account. The other thing is that for 70% of the lap, they're at full throttle. That means fuel consumption is high. Tyre wear, it is very, very low on grip. All those factors, they have literally got to put into the computer and work out what the strategies are that they're going to take. And we're going to see a lot of action because it's very, very close to the racing on this track. So it should be an exciting Austrian Grand Prix.
Live to the Williams garage now, where Louise is with Sir Frank.
Frank, there have been 25 races at this circuit. You've been here for most of them as well, haven't you? What's your best memory over the years?
We won here several times in the 90s with Nigel, and also once with Jacques Villeneuve when we came back to the revised circuit in 97. Since then we've struggled a little bit in relationship to those results, but many people are very fond of this circuit.
Coming forward to this year, I mean, great performance from Juan Pablo yesterday. He lines up 3rd. Ralf down in 10th. What happened there?
Essentially, he spun on his first qualifying session lap on Friday afternoon, started first today, or Saturday, and as a consequence he was just on a very dusty, dirty track from the preceding Porsche Cup practice session. It's a fact of life that all drivers at that end have to grapple with.
Much has been made of a comment that Gerhard Berger made last week, that the car's performance hasn't been what BMW expected this year. Presumably, though, that's a sentiment that you echo yourself, isn't it, to a certain extent?
I'm aware of all the comments that Gerhard has been expressing, and I would imagine there's some sort of policy in this, but it's kind of flying above our head. I'm aware of some vilification in the press, but we're used to that from time to time. and it's far better to let the results speak for themselves.
I know Ralph in the press conference recently said that he's never seen such a push going on at the Williams factory. How quickly do you think you can turn things around and get back to winning regularly?
Well, we're not facing a disaster, we're just not quick enough to inhabit the very front of the grid. To get there is extremely difficult. It does take time, it does require an even bigger push, and I can emphasise all Grand Prix teams are continuously pushing, but an extra requirement is needed at Williams, and that is presently being delivered. It will still take a little while.
So what can you do today? Give me some predictions.
Well, if the sun stays out, the track remains warm, we'll do well.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Thanks for talking to us.
Sir Franco Williams, and that losing streak, if I can put it that way, is not hurting anybody more than it is hurting him. Brief final up sum from you, Tony, about the race.
Well, I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be very exciting. It's all down to the strategy. Just briefly back to that, I think if you look at BMW and Rover in the old days, it could be considering them the English patient as they did then. But you know, this Williams team know what they're doing, and they want a strong result today. Let's hope they're up on the podium.
Well, Rubens Barrichello, he would love to win here after last year's experience. Up front, championship leader Kimi Raikkonen alongside 5 times world champion Michael Schumacher. That dash to the first corner, absolutely crucial. David Coulthard, he's going to be one of those charging from the back of the grid. Juan Pablo Montoya up ahead of him, desperate for points. The Minardis, could they pull something out of the bag here? Who knows? The prospect, though, of those really quick cars down the back. Alonso, Coulthard and Webber making a real charge. Don't go away. The Austrian Grand Prix is coming right up.
Race on ITV, sponsored by Toyota.